Yeah, they issued a dispersal order about 15 minutes ago, and you can see they're starting to move in to disperse the crowd. Now, they were making an announcement up from the helicopters a short while ago. We could not make out what they were saying, as you just saw someone threw something in the direction of the LAPD officers. But the police have been staging and getting ready to move in and are now doing so. But I got to tell you that a short while ago, if you had come out live to us, you would have actually seen people burning rubber at this intersection. And the crowd has changed throughout the day. Earlier, there were lots of families here. There were people with children. We saw people also, elderly people with canes and so forth. And they've left, and the crowd is now much younger, and also, as I mentioned, doing things like burning rubber in the intersection. And the LAPD is now moving in to clear them. And we're going to get behind the skirmish line. They're moving in multiple directions here, trying to keep the crowds from joining together and forming one large group. I'm walking now. We're actually at Aliso Street and Main, and the dispersal orders for this intersection as Arcadia and Spring and Arcadia and Main as well. And I'm seeing fireworks being thrown over here in the direction of the police. And I seem to have lost, there's Frank. We're going to walk across the street. You can hear that they're saying to leave. As you can hear, they're telling people to leave the area. Police, most people seem to be complying and are moving. They've stopped traffic here as well. So we're going to walk across the street because that's where we're seeing items being thrown off a short while. Behind the...
Obviously, we're having some technical challenges with Christy's mic as she gets farther away from her photographer. Hopefully, the two of them can get a little closer together, and then we might resolve some of those mic issues.
I mentioned to you that we heard people burning rubber, and if we pan over there, you can see that Dodge Charger is doing that right now. You see some of the smoke that is left behind from those tires. Police, and you probably hear that, another item being thrown. That was a water bottle. So what they're doing here, as you can see, they've deployed one flank here and another flank here, and they will often do this during protests when they want to disperse them. They try to keep the crowd away from each other, from forming one large crowd. So they're dividing them and forcing them in different directions. And that appears to be the strategy here right now.
Christy, do we know of any arrests so far?
Yes. I'm sorry, what's that?
Do we know of any arrests so far?
So far, we've not seen anyone being arrested. They just appear to be dispersing the crowd, but I've not gotten an update from the LAPD, so I cannot tell you that with any certainty. I have personally, though, not witnessed any arrests.
And Christy, we saw over the weekend that they took over the freeways at some point. It seems like there's a strong effort to keep people off the freeways tonight.
There definitely is. The LAPD was blocking the entrance to the 101 here at Aliso and Main, and also we saw the CHP. In fact, if we pan down that way, actually it's blocked, so you will not be able to make it out. But the CHP has blocked some of the off-ramps from the 101 freeway here as well in an attempt to keep people from going onto the freeway. But I got to tell you, we've been here all day long, and as I said, the crowd was very different earlier. There's lots of families, and they didn't show any real interest, as far as I could tell, in taking the freeway. Right now, though, it's a much younger crowd. As we're hearing, you could probably hear it there in the distance, people being kind of rowdy with, again, burning rubber and so forth, and throwing items at the police as they're trying to clear them out. So we really saw a shift also in the energy here and who was here.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday it started about noontime, I'm going to estimate, and then it lasted until late last night. Yes, the 101 was taken over for some time yesterday. And of course, that was the same day as the Grammys. You see the bottle there, looks like a beer bottle.
And as we know, when they declare an unlawful assembly, that means that right now, all of the protests, oh, there's a skirmish. All the protesters are technically in violation of the law right now. So that gives the LAPD the right to start making arrests if these people don't leave in a reasonable amount of time.
However, I could not hear the dispersal order, Alex.
Okay.
It was made over the helicopter, but I could not hear it. And so I don't know how many people here have heard it.
Yeah, oftentimes they'll do that over loudspeakers and say it repeatedly to try to give people time. We're also looking at the Mexico flag. Christy, I'm curious, what is the ratio we see of Mexican flags compared to maybe American flags out there?
I'm sorry, Alex, I can't hear what you're asking.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of El Salvadorian flags as well. Mexican flags we've seen. I haven't seen any American flags thus far. I'm not sure if you have, Alex, in all the coverage.
There are American flags. I've seen multiple throughout the day, and sometimes people will be flying both.
So in terms of what we're looking at now, again, that the dispersal order has been made. So it's a question now of trying to get these protesters out of the area. And hopefully all this can happen in a peaceful way. What's the main message, Christy, that you're hearing from a lot of the protesters today that you're talking to?
What I'm hearing is that a lot of people here are saying that immigrants built this country and should be respected. And we've also talked to multiple people who tell us they are American citizens themselves, but they're here for family members who are documented, and they want to speak and draw attention to their plight as well. They tell us many are now at home afraid to leave their home. And there were lots of people here today, too. There was a man who came. He was actually walking with a cane, and he brought his family who was visiting from Dallas. They all came down with they brought their American passports and their American birth certificates, but they said that they wanted to be here. And you can see police. Telling people to leave. Some of them are standing there where they are not moving. Some of them have their cell phones out. Appear to be either recording, some cases live streaming this.
And this isn't just limited to the city of Los Angeles. We saw the crowd earlier in in Orange County and Santa Ana. It's officially a day without migrants. That's what they're calling this day. This unlawful assembly declared just a few minutes ago. So far, no word of any arrest, but that could soon change because, to Alex's point, now that they have officially declared it an unlawful assembly, given them enough time, them being the protesters, to take note of that, then they are in violation of the law if they do not disperse.
And we know that there is a...
I can read you some of the signs if you'd like. I mean, there's a woman there standing there. She says that her parents work harder than our president. There's others that say that I don't believe in borders. Others, signs that we're seeing are just taking issue with. There's one that is an anti-fascism sign. Another one that says, "We stand together, we speak for those who can't." Those are the types of signs we're seeing. We just heard maybe a firecracker go off. Actually, no, it was a foam baton. So apparently the LAPD is now deploying those foam batons. So essentially, instead of rubber bullets, they now use, it's like a foam projectile that they will shoot into the crowd, and it leaves behind a canister. And what I've seen in the past at other protests is that sometimes they will pick up the canister and throw it back at police. But that indicates that was just fired, and I think that's what we heard.
So as we know, as you're watching this, there is a constitutional right to protest in this country. You're allowed to have your say, but there are limits on that. And oftentimes Protests, especially in downtown Los Angeles, will get permits. They will work with the LAPD on a process sometimes of shutting down streets to allow people to have their right and have their say. Okay,
so, yes.
Things are getting escalating here. But then it sometimes gets to a point where the LAPD feels like it is now endangering public safety. You do not have a constitutional right to shut down a street. You do not have a constitutional right to get into a freeway. You do not have a constitutional right to step in front of somebody's car. Police have an opportunity or an ability under the law to step in and try to enact order, which seems to be what's happening here right now. And we're seeing the after effects of that as well. As we know, this issue of immigration is something that's very personal for so many people in Southern California. Most Americans do like the concept of borders based off of polling, but the topic of birthright citizenship, which is something that the Trump administration is trying to end, which has been guaranteed in the Constitution for generations, basically means if you are born here, even if your parents are undocumented, you are an American citizen. And so what we're seeing a lot of today, according to Christie's reporting, is kids who are American citizens, but their parents may not be. That is something the Trump administration is actively trying to stop. They have an executive order on that, which is being challenged, which could go to the United States Supreme Court. And that is one of the many things that people are fired up about as we look on the streets of downtown Los Angeles. And Christie, it seems like they're pushing everybody back. As we look at some of the reporters and photographers, I think, from the LA Times that are there, that Christie may have just said hello to. Seems like they're moving people back.
We need more room. Back up.
Not sure if Christie can hear us.
You can hear the LAPD officer saying we need more room back up. And yes, they are pushing people away. And on social media, on X, LAPD Central Division put out a statement saying that the incident commander for the demonstration at Aliso Arcadia on Los Angeles Street has issued a dispersal order right there at that location. All those who remain may be subject to arrest. Route of travel is northbound Los Angeles to Cesar Chavez. So it does look like they are making progress to push the crowd back. As to where they will all disperse to, we'll see. But now LAPD officers making a run for it somewhere else.
I don't. Yeah, some more LAPD resources, Alex and Marla, have just come in. They are pushing back the crowd. As I mentioned, they are pushing them in multiple directions, in 4 different directions right now, trying to get them to leave the downtown LA area and also to prevent them from forming one larger group. You can see they have deployed those foam batons that I meant. You can hear them being fired right now as we speak. And also, we're still hearing cars burning rubber. And we're seeing the smoke from that, but at time to time we're also seeing what appear to be maybe firecrackers or fireworks being thrown at police officers here, as well as oranges and water bottles, and also glass bottles as well. We're seeing the LAPD airship above us. You can see some people seem to be moving in the direction that the police are asking them to go to, but others are not. They're still staying here, as you can tell from all around us. So there are the skirmish line moving towards Placita Olvera, but now another one is forming, moving back towards Aliso and Main. They did manage to break up this group into two groups. You can see people on the megaphone.
And there's a lot of symbolic value to where this is all happening. If you think about it, we've been on the move in downtown Los Angeles, not all that far from City Hall, not all that far from LAPD headquarters, as we now move towards Olvera Street, which is, such an important part of the history of Los Angeles and really the center of where the city started, and also so much of the Latino heritage and immigrant heritage heritage celebrated on Olvera Street every day, and then you think about times like Dia de los Muertos and other holidays that really Olvera Street has become a central gathering point for many people, especially of Mexican descent in Los Angeles, and so it is. Go ahead.
That we've covered, we're seeing people on bicycles, on foot, and also on in cars, I should say. So that is an additional element that the police are dealing with that is not typical of every protest that we've covered. Just heard more fireworks going off. And I mentioned how they're splitting up the groups. You can see them pushing groups, one group of protesters in that direction, and then holding the line in this direction so the people that are where we're standing cannot join the other group.
And I hope the news is going to tell a real story about how LAPD started the violence today.
And you're talking about the fact that the protesters, including cars, because oftentimes we'll see in some of these scenarios that the cars themselves get stuck, sort of innocent people who happen to be driving by. But what Christy's suggesting here is that some of the vehicles we're seeing in this are protesters themselves who are using their cars to have their say.
I don't know. Well, there was definitely the one that was doing basically burnouts, but others are just protesting in their cars. They've been doing that all day long, and many of them peacefully. They've been driving around, flying their flags, but that's an additional element that at this hour, when they're trying to get people to go home and they're issuing a dispersal order, that they're having to confront as well.
And this group bringing in their instruments.
Yes. Yes, they're now playing music.
Yeah, and all of this happening at a time where we have seen some of these ICE raids in major cities across the United States. We have not seen major raids in Los Angeles yet, but one has to assume that the second largest city in America is on the list of the Trump administration, which has said that Los Angeles is on the list, and that could begin as early as this week. So if you think this protest is big now, that may exacerbate and make protests even bigger. And in some ways, there are some people that wonder if things like that might depress turnout, people scared to come out. But we see a lot of these folks seem to be proud to be out, to celebrate their Mexican heritage, to have their say in America, and to try to send a message when it comes to what's happening right now when it comes to immigration.
Christy, the police officers seem to be leaving those playing the music alone right now?
They do for the moment, and I have to say, for the most of the day, it has been very peaceful. People were just out here demonstrating, and even now there are a few that are engaging police, as we saw that they were throwing bottles and items, but there are others who weren't. Much of the group that you're seeing here was behind the police officers, and right now they're not engaging them. They're just playing music and dancing in the street.
Yeah, and so it seems like this protest has gotten a little less chaotic and a little more joyous in the last few minutes as the music comes out, and certainly seems to be less of a threat for the LAPD.
Well, the bottles that we were seeing being thrown were not coming from this group. They were coming from some that were pushed out. So they're now been separated. We can walk in that direction and see what's going on over there if you like. So we're passing. They're not letting us through.
And we know once the sun sets, which it has, and it's officially going to be dark very, very soon, things can also get a little bit more rowdy nighttime.
Yes, that is often the case. And like I said earlier today, there were lots of families here. There were people here with children, and it was a very different energy. And I also also there were a lot of elderly people. Right now you can see who's here. It is much younger people in general. You can hear them talking to the police now.
And Christy, I think it's important as we're looking at the LAPD officers, batons in hand, to point out the crowd right now is a much younger crowd. And earlier you said it was more family oriented because you've been out there all day. And again, to reiterate, their message is to, noting that LA is a sanctuary city, their message is to the Trump administration.
I'm really sorry, Marla. I could not hear what you asked. Right now, there are some protesters that are asking police why they've issued a dispersal order. Some also blaming police for starting all of this, saying that they were demonstrating peacefully. And that certainly was true for some of the protesters here. Many of them were peaceful. But as we've seen, there have been some who have been throwing items and so forth. So different people came to this protest, and some of them did want to peacefully protest, and there were others who apparently, at least in the last half hour or so, have wanted to engage police, and they're still playing music.
And now as we hit nighttime, you see that LAPD helicopter overhead shining its light on this, keeping a track of it from the air, and we see the officers standing by on the ground.
And it seems like, well, not seems like it, they have split up in two. So now we have the skirmish line here. This is where those ultimately playing music and being more jovial have gathered up ahead. It was the more rowdy protesters, if you will, and those folks have been pushed back by LAPD.